Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Hello once again and welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Today's Truth Minute is taken from the book of Jeremiah 29 verses 11. It says, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you a future and a hope." I don't know what you're going through today. I don't know what your experience has been. I don't know what your journey, but I'm here to tell you this. You may be struck, but remember you're not destroyed. You may be hard pressed, but for sure not crushed. Perplexed, but do not despair. Persecuted, you won't be, but not, and not forsaken. Remember this, storms will not last forever. Therefore, be still and know that He is God. That is the Amazing Truth Minute.
The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Thank you for that. We are back. I don't know what to call this episode.
We're back like we never left.
Back like we never left. But we have a special episode for you today. For the last 2 weeks, you've listened to Rehema and her story, all of part 1 and part 2. And she dropped gems. She told us about her story and how she ended up homeless, attempted suicide. She came from a genocide-hit country. She has built her self-confidence in a very beautiful way, and she's a successful entrepreneur at the moment. Rehema's Cuts, and those that have gone to get their haircuts, thank you, and mention Amazing Truth Podcast to get a $20
and
off.
follow and subscribe.
And follow and subscribe. Yes. So we are here because one thing we didn't know, when she came to record the last 2 weeks, she brought her friend, her best friend that she's known since they were 14 years old. And yeah, have you ever had a friend you've had since 14? Yeah. That's Ezra. That's the whatever. But with me, as always, I have Ezra and Collins as well. So we are just gonna jump right in. We'll let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself and what she does, and we'll go from there.
All right. My name is Kezzi, and I'm Rehema's friend, as it was said. I've known Rehema since I was 14, and I won't say how old I am now, but so a long time.
Are you guys in the same age group?
Kenan, stop.
She wants me to say I'm older than her. Let's just keep it that way. I'm older than her.
No, but I've known her since we were 14. So we've been friends for that long, but we've had some ups and downs. But somehow we always get back to being friends. And personally, I'm a social worker. Has been working in Hennepin County for the past 5-6 years. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. I have a master's in social work, and that's what I do now.
Good.
In the presence of the best.
And I think Ezra, whatever she just said, just put my name there. so now I'm not a host anymore. I think you should address me. You guys.
No, but
Anyway.
professional. I doubt you are.
Put respect on your name.
But I don't know if I can come to you.
To be honest, Ezra, we've said this before. It's nice to see an African social worker just like yourself. So when I heard she was a social worker and in the clinical independent social worker just like I am, it was exciting.
That's why you invited her.
That's why I had to bring her back. But anyway, we're glad to have you here.
Let's hop into this. I think the agenda for today is simple. What does it mean to be a friend?
Right.
To Rehema, who, for those who have listened to the previous podcast, has gone through this journey. What has it been for you to be a friend? And because she mentioned that she had friends who she had to
kick out. She had distanced herself. So we'll look at you in that perspective. How has it been to being a friend to her in all this,
right,
in her journey?
So I think in the beginning, like everything was like normal. We were like regular high school friends, just talking every day, messaging every day. So as she said, like because she was like so energetic, like a lot of people, they don't see when you present a different way. Like people might just see you as like, oh, this person is like talkative, she has energy. But then even me, like I didn't see like what was going on. But if you look back, like you can start like to see some signs, like when she mentioned about like when she texted me. I was going to school in Iowa at the time, and so I wasn't even there, and I was like, I don't believe this. Like we have like gone out. She's always like happy. She's always smiling. Like why would she all of a sudden like want to like say, oh, I'm not gonna be there anymore or something like that? So that was like the first time. I think that was actually the first person I knew in my life who was, even though she said she didn't attempt, but that had that thing happen.
So she texted you, and that text was,
Rehema,
would you tell us what that text was?
I believe it was around the same text I sent her and my sister. It was more, I love you and bye.
Yeah, right. She was really random. It was like, you're not going to see me anymore, or I'm leaving, like, bye. And I'm like all the way in Iowa, and I'm like, who am I going to call? How do I call the police and tell them like, get to where she is? And so that was like the first time that I was like, oh, there's like something wrong. But then like, even like just moving forward, like to right now, and I want to talk more about like symptoms. Like I know she touched on like symptoms to look for, or like how you can tell if somebody's like struggling with mental health. And this might not apply to everybody, but this is just like general from what I've seen in my personal experience and my professional experience. So like with Rehema, she mentioned like the manic, and so she has really bad impulses. Like I would say that like she makes like a decision, like she would be like, I'm buying that car today. She has the money, she'll just go buy it. Like right, like there's no talking her out of it. There's no like, oh, let me think about this. She's like, I'm moving to California like tomorrow. She did that recently. She was like, oh, I'm moving tomorrow to Colorado. And I'm like, what? Like,
Rehema, we just advertised your business.
Oh, no, but I'm back now. I'm back now.
She actually moved, right?
But let me tell you why I moved to Colorado, to where I didn't know anybody, so that I can see if I like what I do enough to continue doing it.
So you're the reason behind it?
Yes. Now I'm in Minnesota. I've signed a 2-year contract. I am here.
It still like she said, it still was an impulsive decision.
It was an impulsive, yes.
Yeah, like she would just like, I've sold everything in my apartment, I'm going tomorrow. Like, when did you think about this? Like last night I was thinking about it and I did it. And so that's like something, like if you have a friend or if you have people that are like making like crazy impulsive choices, then that might be like a sign. Or like we would be talking like just fine every day, and then like one day or 3 days, like she goes like dead. Like I don't hear anything. And I'm like, what's going on? And then if you reach out, she would be like short, like giving you like one word, like yes, no. But usually she like messages like S's, like she'd be writing. So that's another thing too that I've noticed. Like if her conversation starts like changing, or if you're used to like talking to somebody every day, and then all of a sudden like you don't talk to them after like 3 days, and then usually she always ends up saying like, oh yeah, I'm feeling like really sad today, or I've been feeling like really bad the past 3 days, or something like that. So at first, like, and before, because I also didn't understand mental health until I went into school for it. And so before, like as a friend, you'll be like, oh, this is so frustrating, or like this person is like, what, they're inconsiderate, or blah 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 blah. But now, because of like my work and because of like I know like mental health better, I'm able to like understand like when she's going through those things, and I'm like, I don't take it personal, like, oh, she's just being like, give her the space. And then I can always almost tell like, okay, it's been a few days, so like let's recoup, and then we take it back from there.
So you're patient with her,
right? So if you have friends, children, or parent, whatever, like patience is one thing. But yeah, as far as like things to look out for, like isolation, crazy spending, or just crazy habits that are like out of the norm, then those would be like some signs.
I know she mentioned a desire of no desire of doing what she likes. Like she wakes up tomorrow and says, "I don't like cutting anymore. I'm gonna stay home and not cut."
Take me to the hospital.
That's a warning sign,
yes,
right?
yeah, I will definitely. Yeah, that's been one constant.
Yeah. And it could be a kid who likes to play basketball.
Yes.
And they say, "Oh, I don't want to play basketball anymore."
Yep.
That's
Or it could be a friend who, like, you say, let's go out or something. They're like, I don't want to do that.
So let me ask you, I'm here as the nobody, social workers, and Rehema. I see, and in my line of profession, I also work with a lot of young people. I see a lot of posts on social media. I see a lot of some of these tendencies you're mentioning. How do you advise people like us to reach? How do we reach out to? Right now, I can just tell you, like last weekend, I got a message. Last weekend, last Friday night, from someone who told me, reach out to so and so, because right now, if someone doesn't reach out to them, we might regret that moment. What do I do?
You reach out.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely reach out, and if you can, go there in person. Reach out in person. Like don't just send a text like, "Hey," because if like Rehema would have sent that, and then her sister would have been like, "Oh, what's going on? Is everything okay?" Like they don't have the time to go back and forth like texting you. So if you can, like, send someone in person, go there in person, because sometimes. Even though like Rehema said she didn't do it because she was looking for attention or a cry for help, but a lot of time like suicide attempts have been proven to be like a cry for help.
Yes.
And so like if somebody does something and they don't see that, like it could start like, I'm gonna take this one pill, and if nobody observes it or does anything, then nobody cares, then they're gonna take it higher. So just go there in person, send somebody, and so that they can know that there's somebody that cares.
So, and then is it right to a reaction to call the cops? Is that what? How would you perceive that?
The cops for me it's a tricky situation. So let's say it's a man who's like having like the episode that Rehema was having at the gas station when she talked about in the other episode.
Yeah.
Like the cops sometimes, like with all the killings with the black people, like cops might not know how to handle that. So I guess you would have to assess and see how safe it is for you to reach out to the cops. Like if it's like a crazy episode, then of course, like they always say, call 911, call the ambulance. But like it's tricky with the cops, like, and it's tricky with like black males. Black females are a little safer, but it's very tricky to call the cops on somebody who's having like a manic episode or a psychosis like stage.
I want
to bring in
1 second.
Collins.
I just want to add to that. Just in my line of work, I think right now with the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, the incident, I think the cops are now trying to integrate social workers in their precincts, when they respond. So when you call, if you have to call the cops, I think that's the first line of defense. If you have to do that, tell them you think it's a mental health episode. It's a mental illness. You think this person is going through, and then they'll send the right person. They will not send they'll send CIT officers, and they'll be able to de-escalate the situation better than cops coming and throwing guns.
I can give you the numbers, but there's a crisis number for each county, like Ramsey County, Hennepin County. They have a crisis number that if somebody's having a crisis for adult and for children, you can call them. And then they'll send somebody to like de-escalate the situation. So alongside with the cops, like
612-348-1223.
There you go. Yeah, that's the number.
I do that in I do that as a side hustle. I work for COPE and they call mental health crisis. You
don't even have my number memorized.
Every social worker needs to have that number memorized.
Let me bring in Collins here. But I want to ask this question as Collins comes to ask this question. Where can I get friends like you? Or where can people? Because friendships, really, honestly, I think friendships go a long way in these issues we are talking about. And building those relationships, I think, can be crucial too. Anyways, CPS, That's what you do.
And that number is 612-596-1223.
Is that for
Use it
Ramsey
if
County or
you
Hennepin
That's for
County?
Hennepin County, if you're in
Okay.
Hennepin County. But if you Google mental health crisis response in different counties, and we have these resources on our website. Check our website. We have those resources as well. Now, Rehema,
Yes.
when you distanced yourself from, there's a time you distanced yourself from everybody, and you wanted to kind of do an inward introspection of yourself. What did you want your friends to ask you, or when they asked you, what did you want them to know?
It's hard to answer that though, because I myself almost didn't know what was going on. So it's almost like you know that you're not okay, but you don't know how to be okay right away. But you know that you're going to be okay, but you can't just snap your fingers and be okay. So it's one of those things like, I know I'm not okay, but I can't tell you what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, as a friend, let me assess and see what is going on. But it's where you hope that you have true friends who know you for who you are. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was saying, like, having people you party with, they will know you in that party mood, but they will not know you personally. Because even just this past summer, I had a birthday party where I invited some people, and I invited a person who was going through mental health too. And at first I was like, maybe let me not have them there because we have alcohol, we have all of these things. But at the same time, I was like, let's include, because we have to learn self-control, right? As adults. So instead of having to say, let me not go there because that thing is there, why don't I go there even though that thing is there, but I can control myself? So that person came with friends. But by the end of the night, that person had to come back to the hotel with me and my friends. We weren't that close to that person. But I said, the fact that you came here with people, you are sick, actually. They left you here. In the morning, we had to Uber you home, and the next day. So distancing was almost like, I know what I'm going through, a little bit of it. I know that you may not understand it, and I'm at the point where I feel strong enough to walk by myself so that I don't have to ever hear somebody say, how did we not know?
Yeah.
She was smiling, because I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll save you that.
Wow.
Wow, Kenan.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is resilience right here. To Kezzi.
Kezzi.
Kezzi. Yeah, we'll just say that for now.
For now.
Yeah.
Having spent that time with Rehema, and having watched her in her darkest moment and having watched her in her brightest moment, how do you what I'm trying to ask is, how do you Kenan, help me out. Help me out. I have a question in me, but
We'll
it's
give you
not
time.
coming
Oh,
out.
is the mind reader?
Yeah. This one I can't read.
Let me
Oh.
think through
yeah,
it.
yeah, but I want to ask social media. Okay, now social media has a cry for help. I know we've seen Facebook and all this, and then there's talk about the role social media plays in making mental health worse or making it better.
Oh my goodness. I don't even think we have time. But social media, yeah, there's good and there's bad. But social media, what it's done, because you can post things on social media that are not true. Like, I can sit here in this room and go on Facebook or Instagram and post that I'm in like Dubai living my best life or something. And people would look at that and be like, oh, my life sucks. Like, why don't I have the same kind of like life? Like, I want to be like her. She's always going like everywhere, or she's like so skinny, or she's like, and there's like Photoshop, right? So people like would post pictures, like celebrities do it all the time. Like, you see pictures and you're like, oh, she looks so good and I'm so fat. She has like no pimples and I have all these pimples. And so people perceive things on social media as like reality, but when in true, like it's not, they might not be like living that, like she was saying, like you can be at a party and then go sleep like in your car and you're homeless, and people would be like, oh, I like what you have on, you have such a fun life. Meanwhile, you're like going from car to like the clubs, and people
It's
think you have like
exactly like
people
that.
think you have this like high life and you're like have all this money, or you can be like balling, just like buying people things, and then meanwhile you're crippling in debt. So people will be like, oh, you're so rich, like I want to be like you. And people, when they start to perceive that, like you might get depressed over that, like why am I not? So there's like a lot of comparison the social media has allowed that contribute to like people's mental health in making it worse. But at the same time, like social media, the way that it helps, like first, like somebody can post like, I don't want to be here, and then you can know right away. So then you'll be able to like go check in on them, or like, hey, what's going on? Or there's always like these resources, like people post, like if you're having a mental breakdown or if you're struggling with suicide, please call us. And so you can see that. So it plays like a role in like both the good and the bad. But I think the worst thing the social media has done is like the comparison thing. It just makes everything so much worse.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, back to my question: how have you managed to know when to give her the support she needs and when to pull back?
I think a lot of it for me is honestly accredited to my like profession and my schooling, like because I got to like learn all these things in school and I get to practice it. So it's like you like you cannot stop. I don't think you can stop being a social worker. Every time like if she says something, I'm like assessing her, or if she like, I haven't heard from her in 2 days, like what's going on? Like it's like an assessment. So I'm able to like kind of just always view from that lens of like assessment and analyzing, and then I can be like, okay, it's been 2 to 3 days, like let me come back, or let me give her space now. Just like what a lot of it I learned from like work and from school. I don't think I knew that before.
Talk to parents who may have a child that is experiencing what she went through, and they don't have the background of a social worker.
Yeah.
They have not gone to school. They have not studied, but they see the ups and downs and all this. How can this parent get to know when Rehema needs help and when it is safe to give her the space to?
Right. So I think a lot of the things that I've seen, and I work with kids, so a lot of the things that kids say, and every kid is different. Like people who have kids will tell you this, like no one child is like the same. Like all the kids have like different personalities. Like one child might want to be left alone. Another child might like want to be hugged or something like that. So I think the first thing, which a lot of people mentioned, is get to know your kids. Like talk to them, take time to know them, because once you know them, you will know like what they're like, what things that they don't like, and then they will feel comfortable coming to you and like speaking to you. But if you start seeing like some of the symptoms that we were mentioning, like isolation, staying in the room, being sad, being impulsive, and things like that, if you don't have the background, like you can honestly do like a simple Google search, like therapist near me or something like that, and then maybe call them and say, or call the crisis number that we just mentioned, like, hey, this is happening, like what can you like recommend, or call the hospital. Like anybody would be more than happy to give you like additional places to go to. But definitely I'll say talk to your kids, get to know your kids, have conversations, and that would make such a big difference.
Yes. Now you listened to her story in her childhood. Explain what protective factors are and what did you see in her?
Right. So protective factors in the world of social studies they're the things that are in place that kind of help you maintain like the sanity, and they protect you from like doing bad things or bad things from happening. So some of her protective factors, like the first one she mentioned was like the faith. Like having faith, always like believing in something higher than you, like that kind of like kept her alive and kept her like from harming herself or like from doing worse than she could have done. So that's something that's gonna make you stronger. Like another protective factor that I would say would be like her passion for hair cutting.
Yeah.
That's something that has remained like constant in her life, even up to now. So like always like having that like to look forward to, like it keeps her like here every time she thinks of like, oh, I want to do this to myself. But then she's like, but I love this thing. I have this thing that I love like so much. So that kind of like helps her like be here. And then another protective factor, which is like tricky because it can also be a risk factor, but her family and her background, like where she came from, those are the like systems that kind of have produced like resilience in her, even though it has contributed to like her mental health declining, but it also has like helped her become like more resistant. Because even when she talked about she went to Uganda and then she was able to see like how worse people have it, and then you can come back here and look at your life and be like, it could be worse. Even that's not a good thing necessarily, but for her, like that helped her like keep going. So her family and where she came from are also like protective factors. And I think those are the main ones that I can
so
remember from her story.
It's important to know what your protective factors are, and also your risk factors as well. Because if you are aware of them, then you know when you're going far left, you know that's a risk. If you're going to a club and you know alcohol triggers you mentally, you know that's a risk factor. And it's good. And if that's why we always say, go if you have a need for therapy, go, because you can unpack these things and you can actually write them down. So I'd encourage, write down your risk factors and write down your protective factors. So you have them visual. You have visual. If you're struggling, you can just jump into it and just, go to the next step. Yeah.
Of course, this counts as one of the things that the community can listen to and get a lot of knowledge about this. Are there any resources for the community at large?
Yes.
Friends, parents, of course, have the benefit of living with their children and knowing what their characters are. Friends, some people you just meet one day. And the interesting thing Rehema said is she saw someone and knew that she was struggling with mental illness. And although she had been left with by the friends that she came with, you are able to help protect that friend of yours and make sure that she doesn't do.
That's another protective factor. Friends, like having the right people around you that would like keep you from farther harm. Like, so make sure you always surround yourself with like good company or good people, because it's very detrimental to your mental health.
Very true.
So, I think I need a social worker in my life, just to
You have one right there.
Kenan, I think I'm in
He got
social worker.
credentials too and everything.
But anyways, let me. Rehema, you've been quiet for a while. I think it's about time we bring you back as we start winding up. Couple of questions that I want to ask is, both of you have walked this journey together for a while. How open are you to meet a group of young people or anyone that might be interested, who might ask questions that we cannot be able to ask, because we want to continue propagating this message of hope and help to others? And just how open are you? That's a quick yes, no, whatever.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just kidding. I am very open, actually. As he mentioned, there's not a lot of African social workers. And every time, like, I recently met some like young African girl, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're a social worker. I'm also going to be a social worker. Like, I don't know anybody in my family. Like, how do I get my license? How do I get this? How do I get there?" And so just even like the education piece, just like helping or mentoring, like I want to do that like all day, every day. So like anybody who has a question or anybody who needs like resources, parents, families, and there's also culturally appropriate resources. So there's like therapists that are like of African background. because that's another conversation for another time. But I definitely can connect anyone to a lot of any resources.
Awesome. And you share those resources. We also have them in our website for people who are listening so that they can be able to get those. What about you, Rehema?
I would definitely say yes. And if you've heard my story for the past few weeks, I think it goes to show that even though those things happened, I'm able to talk to somebody and uplift them. I will not help you sink.
Yeah.
So, and also the fact that she did say there are not that many African social workers, African therapists.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you have somebody you can relate to, it's simpler and easier for you to express.
Let me put a plug here. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I keep on putting my friend Kenan down, but on all seriousness, he's a social worker, and actually he does a good job. I just got convicted that I might be losing one of them.
Had the opportunity to shine.
But yes, go ahead, Rehema. So you're open to that?
I'm very open, and another reason why I say this is because I consider myself a social butterfly now. I love to go out. But I go out with the intention of wanting to be around other human beings, not for the troubleness of it. So I also want to say, while you're dressing up nicely to go out, please make sure your mind is good. While you're going out every single weekend, these people that you're drinking with, please make sure they'll have your back the next day. Because there's nothing more sad than spending a whole weekend with people and drinking, and then the next day you have an issue. And nobody comes to rescue. I am known by people in this place. But the fact that I could sleep, I do know some people too that I've could gone to. But to know that you're known or know so many people yet be able to sleep on yeah, it was a choice. But the fact that it had to become a choice given how many people I knew. So that alone, did I know you for good reasons? So take care of yourselves. Please. Take care of yourselves.
Collins, this is a very informative, good conversation. I wanted to start wrapping up, but as we wrap up, I just want to make this plug. Simply because someone is struggling with mental illness, it doesn't mean that they are not a normal human being.
No, not at all.
I think sometimes we put that label, that stigma, and we see them just like you might be struggling with pornography, just like you're struggling with, I don't know, whatever you're struggling with.
Right.
It's only that yours is not public. So remember that these are struggles, yet. These are struggles, and we all go through them, and that's why we're doing this. I want to put both two of you in the spot.
Please do.
Talk to each other. For all these years you've known each other. Talk to each other. What is it that you've never told each other? What is it that you're proud of? Talk to each other. We're not here.
That's easy.
Have a good conversation as we wind up.
I've messaged plenty of times before, but I think my most proudest moment is Rehema opening up her own business. Like, she's been talking about cutting hair for ever. Even before she started cutting, like, she was braiding hair. And so hair is, like, honestly, like, her passion. And there's not a lot of people that get to follow their passion. And so even if it doesn't, like, work out, like, at least you got to, like, try it for yourself. And as she said, like, that's one of the main decisions that she got to make for herself, because a lot of the decisions are made for us. But another thing that she's doing is breaking barriers, especially, like, in the African community, Black community. I have not seen a lot of female barbers, and especially if you go back home, people are going to be like, what are you doing? Like, a lot of people are like, girls can't cut hair. I'm not going to let no girl cut my hair, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that she's doing it, like, it's, like, opening doors for a lot of, like, young people or other, like, young girls who might want to, like, go into that business or venture into that. So despite of, like, all her struggles and everything, like, she has managed to get to where she is right now, and it's really impressive. And one thing about African people, they're very resilient, so I'm just incredibly proud of the business that she has and the life that she has made.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And then I also would love to thank you for being one of the first few women that taught me the importance of friendship. friendship that goes so deep that you almost become like sisters. And like I was telling you the other day, that's why it hurts so much when our friendship would separate without any reason. So, and I also want to say, as I know what you have gone through in order to do your schooling, very proud. And that's the thing, like she said, we're very resilient. So that's why let's now look at each other and see somebody go through something and think that I won't go through that. Or why are they going through that? Let's just be kind, because resilience is needed. Resilience is needed. We're all in this country. I mean, I would say the word foreign, but also we are, and like the traditions too. So if we're able to follow something and stick with it and finish it, self-discipline, self-control, and also know what you want for yourself. This lady had to go to school. She did it. Everything was a gangster, but she was patient. She had to do what she had to do in order to do that. So if you can hear my voice or look at me and think that I'm confident and believe that I am confident, yet hear all the things that I just said, you can get over depression. Awesome. And let's say you don't have depression, but you have insecurities. What's your excuse then?
Oh, wait, I want to say one more thing. I also want to say that it's really brave of her to come. I know you guys have mentioned this, but it's really brave for her to come and share all her stories, especially like mental health is such a stigmatized thing in the African community and the Black community that like people would be like, oh, she's just crazy, or like they don't understand, like, what do you have to be depressed about? You're in the US, there's like starving kids back home, like you have a car, you're here, like you're pretty, like what do you have to be, you're skinny, like what do you have to be depressed about? Like that's not even, they cannot like fathom like depression or anxiety, like what's that? Like what do you have to be anxious about? So the fact that she's like talking about this and she constantly shares her story to like anybody that would listen, so it opens up like so many doors to like people, parents, like kids, anybody that is out there to just kind of normalize like that mental health, like it's real, like, and mental health is physical health. Like if you're not mentally well, you're not going to be physically well.
Yeah. Well, as we wind up, Collins can give us a parting shot. Kenan, as you close us down, let me say this. We love you. We celebrate you. We appreciate you, and we are honored just to listen at your stories. Here we always say your test becomes your testimony.
Yes,
your
I believe
mess becomes your message. So thank you for doing this, and we hope, pray, and trust that someone's life will be changed because of what you guys have done here. Collins, parting shot, then Kenan closes this show forever, at least for now, for this episode.
Well, I've sat here, listened,
Thank you, Ezra.
And I'm very thankful for your courage, your resilience, your boldness to come and share very vulnerable information. And I hope our listeners, especially young people, can hear this story and receive hope that it's not the end of the world. You know,
It's not.
God is with us. God is able to turn our world around as he did for you. And I want to just encourage anyone to come and talk to you, talk to us, find us, and get the help that you need. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, ladies. We really appreciate that. Again, listen to this story, give us your feedback, follow us on our social media, and we, again, so brave of you. Thank you for the support you're giving her, and
Thank you.
pray that the Lord will still walk with you now and forever.
Amen.
And that is the Amazing Truth Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.